number one coaching tip for SDRs and AEs is to create a culture of self-accountability. So as a sales leader, what's better than holding your reps accountable is having a culture where they hold themselves accountable. So what I recommend is having a give to get policy when it comes to coaching. So in order to get coaching from you, a rep must attempt to coach themselves. So if they want feedback on a cold call, they have to give themselves feedback on a cold call first and bring that to you. So create scorecards, self-accountability, and allow your reps to self-coach themselves. Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that gets talked about a lot, right? Sales and marketing, how do we work together? How do we kind of bridge the gap? All that kind of stuff. If I had to distill it down really simply, marketing on one side of the equation as a marketer, you're creating content. And the type of content that you create for the prospect is really important based on where they're at in the buyer's journey. So if you don't work together closely with sales and then vice versa, because sales is just as much to blame in this area, the content that you're going to give a prospect who knows nothing about like the problems that you solve or that your solution exists, that's a very different piece of content than someone that's like deciding between vendors and deciding between your approach. So the reason why it's super important is that from a content standpoint, if you want sales reps to use the content that you create, you need to collaborate with them and really understand what those one-to-one conversations are like. The advice I would give to aspiring sales leaders is the same advice I was given as a manager, first-time manager at 19. It was your team's biggest weaknesses, or your biggest strengths will be your team's biggest weaknesses. So what does that mean? It means the stuff that comes naturally to you as a rep are going to be things that you don't think about teaching other people. So if you're really good at building rapport or getting to pain or multi-threading and getting executives in or whatever it might be, the things that are very obvious to you, like I would really double down on focusing on teaching those to your team because it's not going to be the first thing that you think of. Yeah, there's a couple books. One that I recently read is called Medic by Andy White. And Medic's really great if you're doing any kind of sales where you're closing deals that are over $10,000. I think one of the hardest things to do is when you're approaching the sales calls is figuring out what you need to take away from the call in order to advance the deal forward. And a really great way to do that is through a qualification framework. I'm not a huge fan of BANT because it's so like seller centric. Medic is something that aligns a little bit more with how a company might buy something. So I definitely recommend you check that out. And the other one is, of course, Challenger Sale. So I think having something compelling, a compelling point of view is really important these days. There are so many vendors out there selling really the same product for the most part. And the differentiator is the commercial teaching, as they call it in that book. Like, what can you teach this prospect about their competitors and the way that people are doing business right now that would be a surprise to them and create an emotional reaction? That's going to help you with prospecting, selling, whatever it might be. So I'd recommend checking out those two books. It ends up manifesting itself. The biggest mistake ends up manifesting itself as, like really pitchy cold emails, for example. But I think at the core of that, there's a lack of understanding of what we're actually trying to accomplish when we do outbound. Outbound is not about looking for people to sell your solution to and to get sales calls with. Outbound is really like looking for people whose priorities align with the priorities that you can help with. So if I sell sales training, let's say, for example, to a VP of sales, I'm not looking for good people to sell sales training to. I'm looking for VPs of sales whose priorities are getting their account executives to do more prospecting, right? To increase the business acumen of their SDR team so that they can land meetings with executives. Like, those are high level priorities that these people have that I can align with. So that word align, both from a selling and a prospecting standpoint, if you can think about who can I find that aligns with like the types of things that our clients care about and have conversations with those people, those will naturally lead to conversations. So don't look for people to sell your stuff to. Look for where there is alignment in priorities and problems that your solution can ultimately help with.